Okay, Ji. Today we will be discussing the structured programming in paper 2. Structured programming in paper 2. This is one very important topic of your paper 2, and you also need to know that your whole paper 2 programming is based on the concept of structured programming. As in the initial chapter, you learned the concept of decomposition, and let me recall what you learned in the start. In the decomposition, you people have initially understood that what is the computational thinking and the concept of decomposition. And in the decomposition, you people learned how to decompose a complex problem into smaller problems and then further decompose and then to further decompose the problem. So this was an approach. We also call it decomposition or modular approach, or it is also called the top-down approach. We are talking about structured programming. Paper 2. So in this approach, you people have already learned that how to decompose a complex problem into smaller problem and then further decomposing it to an extent where more decomposition is not possible. So you finally reach to a piece. This is a piece of problem. And that the programmer they take to write solution. For this small piece of problem, they write solution. Okay. So this approach is called modular approach. This small block, this kind of a block, is called a module. Module means a small piece of problem which we will solve. And this problem, this module is also called subroutine. This is also called a subroutine. So now structured programming is the programming in which we write the subroutines. Okay. So now you see in the syllabus, in the structured programming, define and use a procedure, explain where the construction of algorithm it would be appropriate to use a procedure, parameters, functions, so all these things. So basically structured programming is the concept of writing the procedures and functions. Okay. So we can see the module or the subroutine. This module or subroutine, now there are certain things that you need to know about these subroutines. Number one, this module or subroutine has a scope. Every module or every subroutine will have a scope. And there are two types of scope. One is global scope and is a local scope. So the variables that we will use inside these subroutine, they The storages that we will use inside these subroutines, they can be used as local or global. We'll discuss them in detail. And then the subroutine types. There are two main fundamental type of subroutines. Number one, procedure, and the other is called function. So the type of these subroutines or the modules, they are procedures and functions. Okay? And the procedures, and when we call the procedure and function, they are actually a small piece of code. Small piece of code to perform a specific task. So function is same. Okay? So function and procedure, they both are small piece of code that perform a specific task. Okay? Now the function is also of two type. Okay? One is the simple function that you will study, that you are studying in your AS, and then there is another function that is called recursive function. Then there is a recursive function. Okay? So this is another very important concept related to the subroutine, and that is the type. Then one very important part of the subroutine is the parameter. Parameters are the values that we pass to the subroutine. The different subroutines, they are passing values among each other, with each other, and these values are called parameters. Okay? You should remember this. So what are parameters? Parameters are values passed between the subroutine. So these are the values that are passed between the subroutines. Parameters, there are types of parameters. One is actual and the other one is formal. One is actual and the other one is formal. Actual is the sender and formal is the receiver. So this is another very important concept related to the subroutines. When we say subroutine, it is actually it is covering both procedure and function. Okay, so both procedure and function, they use parameters. When they are called, values are passed to them, and sometime they return a value. Okay, so type, actual and formal. Okay, so when these parameters are passed, they are passed, there are different passing methods. How we pass values or these parameters to the calling function or procedures, they are either called by reference or they are called by value. Okay, so this is also very important thing. Then comes the last important part related to the subroutine, and that is debugging. We also debug the subroutines. There are three main methods. One is called stub testing, the other is called white box testing, and the third one is called black box. So the same subroutines, they are debugged. Debugged mean test for, they are tested to trace the errors, to see its correctness, to see its perfection. Okay, so they are either tested by a method called stub testing, or by white box testing, or by black box testing. So there are three methods and we will discuss them one by one. Okay, uh, in the lesson of the debugging. So these are the key things related to the subroutine, and you all need to understand them very thoroughly in order to learn the procedures and function. And as I said in the start, that in your AS level in computer science paper 2, the concept of subroutine is very important. If you are not good in understanding these things, then you will never be able to attempt the questions more clearly, more confidently. Because in every question, the Cambridge asks you to write either a procedure or a function for all sort of programs. Okay, and even to sort an array, even to search a value from a list, even to perform any sort of activity, any sort of program. The basic thing is that you should understand how to use the subroutine. Okay, now coming toward the subroutines and moving into its further detail. So you learned subroutines. So subroutines means either a procedure or a function. Subroutine is either a procedure or a function. Okay, now we'll see how they are used. As I said that procedures and functions, this is the key concept in the subroutines. And when we define the procedure, procedures are block of code statements that perform a specific task and can be used at various places. I've also mentioned it in the initial description of the types. And you can see the functions are also the same. The definition of procedure and function is exactly the same. Function and procedure, they both are block of code or statements, and they perform a specific task and can be used at various places. So you can reuse them. The concept of function and procedure is the reusability. You can, the basic purpose of creating the function and procedure is that you don't want to repeat the statements over various places. Rather, you store these statements with a name and then you're calling it on all the places wherever they are required. Procedures are defined and then called. Functions are defined and then called. So they both are defined separately and then at various places they are called. Okay. Okay. But there's a difference in the third line or the third description. When they are called, when we talk about procedure, they are executed directly without returning a value. So you call it and they will be executed, like call average, just execute. So when you call it, it will be executed. Whatever is in the definition of this procedure, when it will be called, all the lines will be executed and nothing will be left. everything will be done with its call. But when the functions they are called, they will not finish its work. Yes, when they are, one thing is that before telling you that point, one more point to explain over here is that functions, procedures, they are called with the word call, and then they are written and executed. But functions, they are not called with the word call, rather they are written on the right side of equal to sign. So in order to differentiate in a program that where you are using a function and where in which line is you're using a procedure, if you see the name with a call keyword, it means it is a procedure. Or a name without any call, just directly a name and a bracket in front of it, it is a procedure. But if you see the name with the bracket sign and then an equal to sign and then a variable, so this sort of calling or this sort of using a subroutine is an example of function. So functions, when they are called, they return a value that has to be catched by a variable, and functions are always written on the right side of equal to sign. So we always write function on the right side of equal to sign. So this equal to sign will be there always with the name of the function. While in the procedure, there is no equal to sign. Either you have a call word or it is written directly. So this is the key difference between procedure and function. Okay. So this is the basic thing that you should remember about the procedure and the function. Again, then coming toward how we use them. Procedure and function, either it is a procedure or it is function, they are used in two part. One is called definition and the other is called call. Okay. Definition is the place where we define that function, where we will have the body of that function or procedure, where we will have the header of that function or procedure, where we will have the statements that we think, the block of statement that will be used on various places by their call. So that is a definition. Definition is the body of the function with the header. This is very important, header. And call is simply a call. Call is usually, when we talk about the coding in Python, in Visual Basic, call is calling the function or procedure with its name within the subroutine main in the Visual Basic. So inside the main function, we are calling it. Okay. So this is important. So I can also explain it here. Now you see. Sorry. I think I also have coding here. Okay. So you can see the function when we say like this is the call. So this is the main. We have sub, main, and sub. So call is always written inside it. So we will write call within the main subroutine. Okay. And where is its body? Body is the point where it will be defined. Now the body is written outside the submain. Like here, this is the body. Like this is the procedure average. And you can see inside this main function we are calling, we declare two variable a and b, and we ask the user to enter a and b, and these two variables are passed to this subroutine, this procedure, with a call. So because it is a procedure, so it has a call. So call average means you are calling these lines. You're calling these lines here, and when these lines will be called from this main function, main subroutine, we will pass on these two variables a and b to it, and these two variable with the values input by the user will be passed on to these lines. So these values will come over here. Now this a and b is a parameter. Okay, this a and b is a parameter, and the a and b parameter, the one we have over here, this a and b is a sender. This is actual, as I told you in my initial description about the subroutine. I told you the types. You can see the parameters, actual, and the formal parameters. Parameters are the values we pass to the subroutine. So the value that we will pass from the main, that is the actual sender, and the value which will be received by the body is the function, is the, that one is the receiver. Now a and b is the sender, and this line, the first line in the definition of the procedure, is called header. This is the header of, in the procedure definition, the first line is called the procedure header, and in the procedure header we have a keyword procedure with end procedure, and then we have the name of the procedure like average, and then we have an open bracket and close bracket, and inside the bracket we will declare the parameter which will be the number of the variable we will use in the parameter must be same to the variables we are using to pass values. So like here we are using two variable a and b. So now in the procedure header we will also use two variable x and y. The name can be different or can be same, there is no issue, but they both uh, they both refer to different variables. Okay, so this is the sender variable, this is the receiver variable, but the important thing is that they both must have the same data type. Like a is declared here as an integer, so in the header x is also declared as an integer, b is declared as an integer, so here y must be declared as an integer. So the value of a will be received by x and the value of b will be received by y. So when we call, we pass these two values, and these two values will be received by x and y, and in that way the x and y will be given inside the procedure. And here we will, because this was yes, so what we are doing now, we have declared a local variable. Okay, so I also told you about the scope of the variables. Now you can see a and b is only confined to this main function, while answer is only confined to this procedure. So the scope of a and b is local. It cannot be directly used. We cannot write a and b over here, this a and b over here. Yes, we are passing the values of a and b to x and y. The values will be received by x and y, but not actually the a and b will come over here, because a or b is local to this main function, and here the values when it will be received by an x and y. Now x and y will have the values of a and b, so they will be added and divided by 2, and the answer will be given to a variable answer, and that answer will be output. So this is a procedure. Okay, so this is how the procedure works. And then the other thing is the values when we are passing, when a and b is passed by val, it is passed by val. By val is I will explain in the next lesson about the parameters, the by val and by reference. We'll also see some questions. Today only the introduction of procedure and function is covered. Okay.